Barbara Cashman, and today we're going to be doing a SilkeMat drip mold. This is the drip mold that I did, and we're going to actually go through this step by step to create this piece. What I started with was 6 layers of glass, 6 inches in diameter, because what they fit on was an 8-inch piece of SilkeMat that I had pre-cut. In order to get my holes exactly where I wanted them, I went ahead and did a diagram out, geometric. I hated geometry in high school, but you know, and here we use it all the time. Cut the holes so that they were very evenly spaced. I want you to get a close-up of this if you can, because most of these holes are 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and 1 inch. Do your 1 inch holes for stability. Your 3/4 and your 1/2 inch holes are for looks. But you're going to need a good stable base. So I had 5 1 inch holes in this piece. Now on this also, this is the piece actually I did. I rigidized only one side of this. And merely just because I like the texture. But regardless of whether you rigidize one side or both sides, I suggest you pre-fire the piece first. And that means, you've got instructions on SilkeMat, you can look that up. But pre-fire it first, and that will shrink it, condense it, and you'll be ready to rock and roll. How do you cut the holes? Oh man, just find anything. You can cut holes with, this is a copper coupling from Lowe's. We've got tips from cake decorating tips, plastic straws, cigar holders. These will give you all kinds of different sizes, and the materials of like a hard plastic, a glass, a metal. Cut the holes just beautifully, and all it is a twist. That's the only thing you need to do to cut a hole here. Just twist it right out. Easy peasy. Don't need to use an X-Acto knife, so make it easy on yourself. Just find something that is the whole size that you want. So, I also marked out where my glass was going to be so that I made sure that it was going to be in the center of this. What we did then was we put a clear powder in between in order for bubbles. Now most of you do fused glass, you know that if you do a nice layer of clear powder in between your glass, that's going to reduce your bubble factor. So, we did that. And just stacked it. Now, this one has not been rigidized, so it's going to look a little floppy right now. But I'm just showing this for effect. What I used was 4-inch stilts. No higher, no lower. I used 4-inch for this particular piece. And I fired it in a kiln that was only 14 by 6.5. Now that's a shallow kiln. So therefore my elements are right about here. So understand that if you're firing one of these and your elements are up here, your kiln is this big, your firing schedule is going to be completely different. So we'll get to the firing schedule, but I wanted to make that clear that, you know, any factor that changes is going to change the whole scenario. Okay? So we've got this stacked up, ready to fire. All right? What's the next step? This is the schedule that I used for this piece. Yours can be completely different. This is only one of many schedules, but it's a place to start. So I started at a ramp of 350 degrees Fahrenheit to 1100, and I let it rest for 20 minutes. It's always a good idea to let your glass rest sometimes as it's changing its formation. I have Celsius temperatures down here for those of you who speak metric. The second ramp was 450. I sped it up a little bit to 1350, and I held it for 20 to 30 minutes. It really depended, one or the other. 20 sometimes was not enough, 30 made it. Ramp 3, full to 950. Now this was System 96 glass, so that's the reason it's 950 to use bullseye. It's going to be different. 60-minute hold, then a ramp of 100 degrees to 800 for 60 minutes, 100 degrees to 700 for 10 and off. Like I said, I've got Celsius up here for those of you who speak that language, and your kiln could be different. In fact, it probably is. Your kiln is going to be different. These temperatures are only going to be a suggestion, and they're only going to be one of many, many recipes and schedules for firing one of these pieces. This is what I used for this one. So where do we go from here? You got this piece done, and then you want to explore a little further. Okay? So, what can you do to change this out a little bit? There are a couple of things. You can take this piece of silk mat and undulate it. Change it a little bit that way. If you want the glass to come off the edge, when you're rigidizing, remember this is my silk mat rigidizer right here, I only rigidized where my holes were going to be and left the edges soft so that the glass could fall off very easily. And this, of course, would be put in and cured. But that gives you an idea that you can let the glass fall off. Also, instead of using clear powder, I used a color and gave it a nice subtle blue tint on this. So you've got pieces of glass you can put on it. It doesn't need to be circles. You've got different colors of powders. You've got all kinds of tricks and things that you can play with and use and create this and make this your own piece. And this was just the start of it. I hope you had a great time.